Well, ladies and gents, Sony slammed by God of War creator David Jaffe. He's not a fan of the direction Sony's going. It's not being true to the character, not being faithful to the character. Love it. Good to see. Good to see people coming and speaking out. I mean, you know, the actual creator coming out and going, yeah, this isn't what I intended, actually. This isn't my jam. I like this a lot. It's good. It's good to see. Like, ultimately, nothing will happen from this. You know, I don't think anything's going to be achieved. But I think long term, the more people speak out, the better. It's not a bad thing. And I think it allows more transparency. And also, if you're a fan of it, or at least were a fan of it, and you're listening to the creator, that may put you off. Which, when that happens and money starts to, kind of reap what you sow element, that's when Sony may change direction. Who knows? But let's dive into this today. Hit subscribe if you're new here, guys. And do turn those bell notifications on. It really does matter, actually. There's a lot of people with no bells on, so it does help. But anyway, so comic book store owner went viral. We know this. This is what started the whole Cancel Pig situation and Mark Millar coming out and doing interviews and things like that. But the reason why this is brought up is because him, this comic book store owner, and everyone else is sick of people not actually writing the character. They're just writing themselves into the character and using the medium of comic books, movies, whatever it is, now games clearly, that medium is a vehicle to just tell a story about themselves. No one wants that. People like the characters, right? Kratos' story is actually quite an interesting one. And it was popular for a reason. You've got to remember that. People always love to change this stuff. They change Iron Man. They change everything. And at the end of the day, these people were popular for a reason. But anyway, obviously, a load of people, just like the comic book store owner, are fed up with new school writers injecting their own personal experiences and stories into characters. Because it's then not the character. It's not the character at all. Now, these fans largely claim that comic book characters should be written in a manner congruent with how they were depicted in previous stories and events, rather than in a manner that allows a writer to more readily convey personal experiences or trauma. Whatever media it is, if it's an established character, it should not be used as a medium, as a form of therapy for the writer, to express their trauma. No offence, no one gives a flying fuck what your trauma is. No one cares. Go see a therapist, pay them. Right? You literally pay someone to care about your trauma. I don't pay to listen about, to your trauma. It's pathetic. And, it's true, this article is sort of downplaying it, but people are sick to death of comic book characters being written now as a vehicle for writers to explore their own trauma. I mean, it's just bollocks. It's absolute nonsense. Absolute nonsense. And yeah, they should be written in a manner more congruent with how they were depicted in previous stories, because that's the character. It'd be like having James Bond come out and he's suddenly gay, right? And he hates women and he's an effeminate man. You'd be like, what the fuck is this? That's not James Bond, right? There are core character traits that build up a character that is likable. You change those traits, people start getting annoyed because it's not the same character. So David Jaffe, the original God of War creator, is making a similar case about Kratos. Though it's impossible to claim that there isn't some personal bias here, given his involvement in the film, in the franchise's inception. Yeah, but that's a good thing. That's a good thing that he's coming out and saying this. So while the God of War games for the PS4 and PS5 have nearly generally been praised for their gameplay, structure, narrative and visuals, there are a small number of God of War fans who recall what the Ghost of Sparta was like when he first debuted and wish to see that version of the character again. Jaffe's God of War series for the PS2, PS3 are harsh, grandiose, action-packed adventure games set in Greek antiquity. Plot revolves around Kratos, Spartan warrior marred by sorrow. And isn't he marked quite literally by the ashes of his family? That's why he's white. So on a quest for vengeance, he carves a bloody path through Greek mythological pantheons. So years later, in the God of War PS4, PS5 era, new creative director Cory Barlog has Kratos start a new life in Midgard and the Norse god's home. Kratos is more reserved, introspective, as he raises his son Atreus, unaware of approaching danger from the Norse gods. Kratos and Atreus eventually come across a prophecy which threatens their own life as they navigate a freezing tundra. So this is just the background, just to let you know what it's about, basically. So there's been a lot of debate among gamers about which era of God of War is better. You can count former Santa Monica studio director David Jaffe in the camp that only supports the first 3 installments of the franchise. And he would, he's personally invested, he's the creator, it makes sense. So as the game director for the first chapter released in 2005 and its sequel, Jaffe designed the gameplay and storyline that moulded Kratos' ruthless journey of vengeance and made him popular. That's important to note. I don't want to see these characters grow. So David Jaffe on Kratos and Indiana Jones. I don't like the direction that God of War is going in at all. So Jaffe also stated that he loved the 2018 reboot of the franchise, but the 2023 sequel was not his cup of tea. From a narrative and gameplay standpoint, that's not much. There's not much difference between the two games apparently, but he's probably. Yeah, I don't know. Then that is interesting. But he says someone needs to be able to tell these people no sometimes. And say, we love that you're arty, we love that you're taking stuff from your personal life, but somebody needs to step up there and go, you need to be able to do all of that within the pen, within the fence we've put up, and if you step outside the fence, the electric collar is going to get you. You need to do all that within the pen. This is what God of War is, which makes sense, quite frankly. I think that makes a lot of sense. But I just like it. I just like that these people are coming out and saying this kind of stuff. And again, it is important to note this whole sort of element of putting yourself in it and stuff like this. It's completely redundant. You know, it changes the character. Like I said, great example is James Bond. Making him an effeminate gay man. People just be like, holy Christ, what is this? You know? And I will argue, you know, push back a little bit on David Jaffe here, is that you do want some characters to grow a little bit, but not so they're unrecognisable. Now, I don't know if that is the case with God of War. I don't know what you guys think of that. You can let me know down below. But it is interesting. It is interesting. And I like the fact that more people are coming out and speaking about it. Just generally, you know. Stop putting yourself in video games. Good. That's not a bad statement to make. So anyway, cheers guys. Drop your thoughts down below. Take care. Bye-bye now.